Good morning, my cookie crumbs, and welcome back to your regularly scheduled chaos. I don't know if you can hear, but I'm still exhausted. But I'm getting better. We're doing fine. It's all good. I just need a couple more days and then I'm good to go. Anyways, here we go on to the next episode. Let's do it. Izuku shuddered in another breath, at least as much as he could. He couldn't take in a deep breath, at least not with his mouth, not with that skin-tight gag still covering it. He tried to breathe through his nose as best as he could. He just couldn't draw in a breath. It hurt. It hurt so much. The man, after he had given Tanjiro the antidote, he had taken his price. Izuku was laying next to Tanjiro. He hadn't been fed in the last couple days. He was so weak, tired. He was hungry and thirsty, but more importantly, his eye hurt. The man came, changed his hand into a claw, and painfully gouged out his eye. His left eye. Tanjiro still laid unconscious, unaware that Izuku was in terrible pain. Pain from hunger, pain from his eye. It also wouldn't stop bleeding. Izuku needed Tanjiro to wake up, but Tanjiro has still been battling a pretty bad fever from the poison. Izuku was doing his best, but Izuku felt so sick from blood loss, felt so nauseous, and everything. He couldn't. He had to lay down. So he lay next to Tanjiro, hoping that the boy would open his eyes. His fever was gone, and had broken last night. It was the next night, and Tanjiro still hadn't opened his eyes. Izuku shook his shoulders, but no luck. Izuku wanted to cry, but knew that the tears would sting at the claw markings on his face, his still bleeding face. Izuku did his best to stop the bleeding, but he knew that head wounds bleed. But it should have stopped by now. He didn't understand why he was still bleeding so much. Was it the man? Was he purposely doing this? Making sure that the wound never healed? If so, then Izuku was in trouble. He was in danger. He needed help. Soon Izuku couldn't focus or keep his other eye open, and he fell into darkness. Tanjiro swam above the darkness and opened his eyes finally. He groaned as he sat up. Man, Izuku, are you okay? I hope you weren't hurt, or at least poisoned. That was Izuku? Tanjiro had finally looked over at Izuku and gasped. Izuku! Izuku, what happened? Oh no. That thing on his face. In his eye. Oh God, what did that to his eye? Tanjiro screamed for the Disney villain reject. And screamed until... Yes, you called? Tanjiro demanded an explanation. He demanded to know what happened to Izuku. What he did to him. I didn't do anything that little whelp didn't deserve. Besides, if he wanted to save your life, a price needed to be paid. What do you mean? Izuku killed my precious creature. Your creature? You mean that thing that poisoned me? Now that's a bit rude and a little harsh, but yes. That thing did poison you. You didn't die, though. But Izuku felt the need to crush my poor creature. And now I have taken an eye for an eye. You. Remember, I'm not a monster. Suddenly, something deep inside Tanjiro bursted forward, and the man was super shocked. Tanjiro had activated his sun breathing despite the thing on his ankle. No, I put a thing on your... No, my safety net. How could it have failed? The man shouted. Tanjiro gave a loud roar as if he were the monster, and he swiped at the man, catching him in the neck. What have you done? The man disappeared, but not before healing Izuku, knowing that Tanjiro would try to claw his own eye out. Afraid of Tanjiro now, the man vanished, leaving Tanjiro with a sick and injured Izuku once more. He also had the decency of taking the gag off of him. Tanjiro allowed himself to calm down, and his sun breathing deactivated. It was strange, he didn't have his sword with him, and yet... Perhaps, Tanjiro wondered if his sun breathing was tied to his emotions. He shook his head. He couldn't worry about that right now. Izuku was more important. Izuku, hold on. He tended to Izuku and his now stopped wound. The wound had finally stopped bleeding, which Tanjiro was thankful for. He gently cleaned Izuku's face and wrapped up his eye the best that he could with the first aid kit that suddenly appeared. Izuku was also weak and from starvation and dehydration. Tanjiro did his best to wake Izuku up so that he could eat, but Izuku was deeply unconscious. It's alright. I'm here. Gosh, Izuku, you're so cold. He grabbed his Haori and wrapped it around Izuku and held him tightly to his chest. Don't worry, Izuku. I'm here. I've got you. It's alright. That monster. What did he do to you? Oh, Izuku, I'm so sorry. If only I was strong enough to wake up sooner. Izuku had been awake to hear Tanjiro. He just couldn't open his eyes. He weakly patted Tanjiro on his arm. Izuku! Oh, thank goodness you're awake. Think you could eat something for me? Izuku wanted to respond, but he couldn't. He then nodded. We'll go slow. I imagine you're a little nauseous. Izuku nodded. He needed to try and eat something. It had been days. Slowly, Izuku ate what he could, and then drank what he could. It wasn't enough to satisfy Tanjiro, but it would be enough for now. Tanjiro didn't want to make Izuku any sicker than he was. Tanjiro then just held Izuku and prayed. He then decided to tell Izuku a story about his brothers and sisters when they were children. I didn't have the heart to tell Nezuko that her singing wasn't helping, but it kept me distracted, you know? Izuku weakly smiled and nodded. He knew what that was like. feeling trapped with no way out. That happened once to him. Him, Kaminari, and Hitoshi had gone on a mission with Aizawa-sensei. A building had collapsed and he got trapped underneath. Hitoshi decided to sing, along with Kaminari. They sang a sing-along song or whatever, and Izuku didn't have the heart to tell them that their singing was just making it worse. Izuku did have a good laugh, though. Izuku just laid in Tanjiro's arms, waiting for the pain and everything to pass. You can go to sleep. It's okay to rest. I'm here now. I'm doing okay, so don't worry about me. Izuku nodded and drifted back. I'll get your eye back. Don't you worry. I'm not gonna let that man take something from you. That man will have to go through me. And I dare him to try. Said man was in his own room. He was upset. He paced and paced and paced. He had healed his own wound. How could that bracelet have failed? It was supposed to keep their powers under control, under check. It wasn't supposed to release them. How was it possible? My fail-safe, my safety net. It failed. Ugh. The man looked over at the jar and saw that the eye that he took from Izuku was sitting on the table. I suppose I should return that before he gets upset. I've heard of this sun breathing. But how? It doesn't matter. Fine. He snapped his fingers and the eye had been returned to Izuku. They just didn't realize it yet. I'll get those kids back. Their next challenge just might be their last. Oh, lordy. Oh god, yeah, no, we are heading into that kind of territory. Don't worry, there's trigger warnings in the show notes below if you missed them. I know I put them at the end of the video, I should have put them before. But hey, better late than never, right? So there are trigger warnings down in the description or the show notes, whatever you want to call them, down below. If you don't want to continue the story any further due to the trigger warnings, I completely understand. Or if you want to skip this episode and wait for the next, totally fine. Not all episodes are going to be graphic or even mention anything like this, but just so you're aware. I know I've explained this before, but here we go again. Alright guys, I will see you all later. Bye-bye.